Hello, and welcome to Let the Growth Flow, a spiritual place to heal mind, body, and soul. My name is Alexis, and I will be your host. My hope for this podcast is to help people learn about all things spiritual, at the same time allowing themselves to heal in any way that they need to. I plan to do that by sharing my own spiritual experiences, as well as bringing other spiritual mentors onto the show. Hello, welcome back to Let the Growth Flow. Thank you for tuning in. I am so excited for this episode today. And before I introduce the guest, I wanted to share a little story with you all, and that is about keeping your energy high. So actually yesterday when I was recording this podcast episode with my guest, my car was towed. So my mornings I have dedicated to my business, my mediumship and Reiki business, and then the afternoons I nanny. So I go to the parking spot where I left my car and it was gone. So immediately, I'm sure you guys can guess, I spiraled. I got anxious. I got mad. I was just all the feelings that bring your energy down. My next immediate thought was, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late for work. I'm going to disappoint them, blah, 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 freaking out. And that's the people pleasing kicking in. But the rest of the day, I let that keep my energy down and low. And I'm here to tell you all that I got my car back this morning. It's totally fine. It was a small amount to pay, and all is right in the world. So this is just your reminder from me to catch yourself when you're spiraling like that. When something bad happens, catch it and take your deep breaths. Think about all the things that are going right and release that negative energy, because your energy is infinite. And now there's just a couple things I wanted to let you guys know about. So I do hold new moon circles. It's called Sisters of the Moon, and it is for women only. But this month's new moon circle is on May 11th. It is going live at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it is virtual, so you can join this new moon circle from anywhere in the world. And I do put a cap of 20 spots in those new moon circles just so we can keep it small and personable and all have time to share. So if you are interested in joining May's new moon circle and a medium reading, tarot card reading, or a Reiki session, you can find all of that on my website, AlexisEastIntuitiveHealing.com, or the link in my Instagram bio, and you can find me on Instagram at AlexisEastHealing. So I am super duper excited for our guest today. I have with me Debbie Squizzero, medium. I first learned of Debbie through Squamish Medium's podcast Spirit School, and I immediately fell in love with Debbie's energy. She is so high vibe, so nice. So welcome, Debbie. I want to thank you so much for coming on to my podcast, Let the Growth Flow. And I appreciate your time. I would just love if you could start out by telling your story. What brought you to this point in your life, your development journey, and what your biggest struggles were during it?
Well, first, I am just so excited and happy, Alexis, that you would have me today. So thank you from the absolute bottom of my heart. And I love there are no accidents or coincidences. And I love that we have like a lot of the same threads in our story, and that I always say the universe always works in crazy ways like that. We find each other, right? It's so funny. I love it. So my journey has been, I always say it's been so crazy, but it's crazy good. I always say my journey to develop my gift, or to actually embrace or realize I have a gift. I always say for every little baby step I took forward, I like to say I took like 5 giant steps back in the process,
Yeah.
which, because, you question things and we're here to learn about ourselves. I'll always say that our time here is really about a self-discovery journey, a self-love journey, and a self-healing journey. That's really what I truly feel being here. I call this Earth School where we are every day.
Yes.
That's what it's all about. But for me, it started when I was about 6. I want to say about 6 or 7. And I'd go to sleep at night. And I would say my bed would face my closet. And I would say to my mom, could you like close my closet door? Because people come out of the closet. And she'd be like, Debbie, what are you talking about? And I go, I don't know. I go, listen, they just like, and they looked like floaty ghost hunter. Like if you watch a ghost show, like that kind of figure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like come out of my closet. And I was just like, oh, at 6, you're like, I don't know what to do. And then they'd like go out into the hallway. And so,
At
now
6, you're like, Mom, help, monsters.
yeah. And it was funny because you look back now, Alexis, and you say, okay, well, my mother could close the closet door all she wanted. They're ethereal and they're just going to go, they're just going to come through. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Their spirit and their energy, right? But it just on a mental conscious level, it made me feel better, right? So what I realize now in hindsight is that they were just, our loved ones are in a place of love. And they were just energetic, loving beings. Because I also say, and I've learned through my work, that between like birth and 6 or 8, we're very innocent. We're very open. We're still childlike. We're not tainted by life, by ego, so we are just filled with love. That's why we look at these little, we say we want to feel good. Let's look at babies, puppies, like we think good thoughts, little, small children. So it's like I always say like attracts like, or it was like a moth to a light. And it was just like, and I didn't get it then, but I get it now. So now when people say, well, why do you think that happened? I'm like, well, this is why it happened. Now I know. So I can tell you how it happened. So that was like 6, 8. And then as I got closer to 10, I'd say I'd have a lot of very vivid dreams about my loved ones who had passed. Or just very vivid dreams, whether they be like about people I know or don't know. I remember them being very colorful, very vivid. And I would tell my mother, oh my gosh, Then as I got older too, I felt like in my teens, I felt like people were watching me, but it felt good. It wasn't a scary, like, oh, scary. It was a comfort. Like I know somebody's guiding me, or I know somebody's with me, watching me. It's like I could feel a set of eyes, but I couldn't explain it. But I'd also go like in the house and get creepy feelings like in the basement or like, so I didn't understand. That's all your energy stuff going on. You're picking up these feelings,
Right.
So that was like in my teens, and I was still dreaming up a storm in my teens. By the time I got into my 20s, a few things happened. Well, I should back up and say in my teens, I went with one of my my girlfriends who we're still friendly with to this day. We grew up together, and she said, Debbie, listen, I heard of this lady in town. She's at the bottom of a hair salon and she reads cards. And I go, well, what do you mean she reads cards? Like I had no idea. Right. So that's when I learned about tarot. And we went to go see this lady. Looking back now, she was so funny, smoking all her cigarettes, reading the cards.
Yeah.
Right? I thought it was Alexis, I thought it was the best thing ever. I was like, woo, she blew me away. Right. I was so sucked in. So, of course, I go home and I tell my mother, I think it's fabulous. I grew up in an Italian Catholic family, and my mother freaks out and goes, oh, that's against your religion. What are you? I go, what are you talking about? I'm like, she was fabulous. Right.
Yeah.
Now, I have to fast forward and say, my mom has a very different take now than she did 20 years ago. She's my biggest fan. She's my biggest supporter. It's funny that we fear things that we don't really know about. Does your family support like what you do?
Yeah, luckily my family does, and I was hesitant at first to mention it to them because my mom's side at least is Catholic, and I grew up Catholic, and same kind of thing. It was always like against our religion, but all of us were kind of always interested in it. So I was nervous to tell like my grandma and my great aunt on my mom's side, but when I did, they were actually so into it and very supportive. My mom's super supportive too. It cracks me up because I like to describe it as like, I think this kind of, I think everybody has the ability to connect medium
specifically. And I think more so it comes from my dad's side. Like my dad's had things happen. My brother definitely has. I think a couple of my cousins, they're curious about it. One of them in particular is curious, but every time I talk to her about it, she has like a very emotional response. So I'm like, there's like something we need to figure out here. But my mom's super supportive, but it's so cute the questions she'll ask compared to like my dad, because he like understands in a deeper level, where she's at that beginning, like trying to get to the understanding of it and like growing her development too.
Yeah, it intrigues her. It
Yes.
really, yeah, it intrigues her. Yeah. So it's so nice. I'm so happy that they're so supportive.
Yes, me too. It makes a huge difference. And
it
kind
really
of
does.
the
Huge.
scariest part, like you said, is telling them.
Yes. And it took my dad a very long what I do and what and my sister, I have one sister and she's very supportive. But at the beginning it was like this whole, and what I've learned is that what we fear, we don't ask enough questions about, and we assume things. So, the deeper I got into this, my mom started to ask more questions and started to understand a little bit more. And I still will explain things to them. But then in my 20s, I met, I would go to this local woman for readings, again,
Yeah.
like hard, right? Like she was a medium, like she was a psychic medium. And so she used both cards and she read for me. And all throughout all my 20s, I was just like, I went to her. And
Yeah.
I also found in my 20s and into my 30s that people would just, and I'll get back to that woman in a minute. She's really instrumental. And I found though in my 20s and 30s that people would just ask me things or tell me their deepest, darkest, like,
Mhm.
yeah, well, I haven't. I'd be like, oh my God, that's a serious issue. I'm like, why are
Like,
they?
I'm just meeting you. Why are you trusting me with this? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so crazy you say that. That happened to me throughout my entire childhood. Like, my mom always joked, she was like, Lex, I think you have the word therapist like written across the top of your forehead. She's like, because all your friends and like even people like who are older will just tell you everything. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know, but I like it.
And I don't know about you, but I would like this information would just come to me. And I'd be like, I don't know where that, and I would say, well, a lot of people would say, well, Deb, you give the best advice. And I would always say, well, I'm just being me. And now I realize that it was being channeled from a higher source. I was like, oh, I was receiving information from spirit, but didn't realize it at the time
Yeah.
in an intuitive way, on a psychic level way. So it was a pretty cool thing. And then in my 20s, I would go see this woman and I give you so much credit for where you are at 23 and being where you are in your journey, and this is where I say everybody's journey is so different, like it
Yeah.
took my 30s to realize what was going on. So in my 20s, I went to go see this woman all the time. And she would just read for me. So she would say to me all the time, Debbie, you're such good energy. And I'd be like, oh, I have no idea what that means. And I'm scared to death to ask this woman. Maybe she just thinks I'm nice. So I'll leave it.
Yeah.
So I left it at that. I now understand what that means, energy vibration, on a whole completely different level. And she would
Yeah.
say all the time to Alexis, she would say to me, she goes, Debbie, you're going to do this work. And I'd say, so-and-so, you are so full of crap. I'm not doing this work. Well, actually, you're so full of shit. I'm not doing this work. Are you kidding me? I'm going to be a teacher. That's what I'm going to do,
Yep. That's
And
the way I'm gonna help people.
yeah, I'm not, I love this. I come here, you tell me about my dead people. I mean that respectfully. And, you guide me with my life and, it's great.
Yeah.
And eventually she moved away and she
Mm.
wasn't anymore. And this was like a time before we had any of this internet stuff, right? So I was like, oh dear, what am I going to do? Well, I just was going on with life and I'd become a teacher. And I've been a special education teacher for 22 years. 10 of those years, I've been doing my psychic mediumship, but I'll get there in a minute. I'm jumping ahead on my story. But so in my 30s, we all have things like these big, like in your story, it was like COVID that made you unpack all of this and do your Reiki and get into your mediumship, right? Like
Right.
that was your big like aha moment. Like all of your intuitive stuff started coming out. For me, it was in my 30s. So I was in my early 30s. I was going through a really difficult emotional time with something in my life. And I was a mess and I couldn't keep it together. And one of the ladies who I worked with, who was a teacher assistant, said to me, Deb, I know you love all this stuff, recommended a local healer to me. Well, I went to this woman and she's the one that really changed my life and told me what was going on. And I sat with her and she said to me, So do you see things and hear things? And I go, oh, shh. I just talk about that with my mother. That's just something me and mom talk about. I said, I don't tell other people about that.
I don't need other people thinking I'm crazy.
Exactly. And this is back like, it's so mainstream now. I'm 50. So this was going back 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And this was not a thing that people talked about, which it just makes me so happy that it is so mainstream. So, so she, said to me, you really have this gift and you can help people. And so she gave me a lot to think about. And I left there and I said, well, if I really can help people, then I want to do that more than just, and I was teaching at the time. And I had just begun my teaching career. And I said, if I have this, I really want to help people. So I went back to her and I said, I want to do this. And so I studied with her for a long time, but that's when everything started to open for me. It was this very, I find that, like we just said, a lot of emotional things happen. So I was going through personally a lot of emotional stuff. So all of a sudden, everything started to open up. So I was like, to the point where she had to teach me how to protect your energy and take it. Because Alexis, people were walking by me at work and I was hearing like things I'm like, well, I shouldn't hear that about that person. It was so,
ooh, that is crazy.
she taught me how to tone that down and how you're not on like, I would say we lower the volume. The volume's not always up. If you're reading, the volume is up. If you're not reading, you lower the volume on your energy. And so I studied with her I just kept studying with her. All the while I'm working my teaching job. And I had another part-time job that I really disliked, I'll say. So I did my full-time teaching job and I really did. I did that job just for the money because I was like, that's my Christmas spending money,
Yeah.
And so I went for a massage one day with a woman that I was friendly with. I've also had a weight loss journey in my time. And so
I think it's super interesting how many mediums struggle with weight loss and weight gain. And it's, I mean, my experience is one than the other, like extremes too.
You too. See, yeah. And it was like, and so after I had on my weight loss journey, I met this woman, and actually for a while I had become a personal trainer as well. I feel like I've worn so many hats. I became a personal trainer and I learned about food. And so we worked together. But she, so I went to go see her for a massage one day and she had these oracle cards. And I said to her, oh, so-and-so, do you know about those? And I said, let me tell you what's going on in my life. And she said, oh, Debbie, you have to read here. And I went, oh, no. I said, absolutely not. So I'll back up too and say, I've always struggled with my other thing I've always struggled with in my life. And it comes up a lot in my mediumship journey, but it also comes up a lot in all of my relationships in my life, whether it be with my family, whether it be in a romantic setting, whether it be in a colleague work setting, and whether it be in a friend setting. It shows up again and again, my worth. I never think I'm worthy enough, and I never think I'm enough. And, I have found in my experience that people like to judge a book by its cover. So if you look like on the outside, you got it all together because you shower and you put your makeup on and they think you got it all together. And I always go, not necessarily. Those are the things that we can control, right? That's what I was saying. Those are the things I can control. So, so I've always struggled with this, and I didn't realize it was a worthiness issue until I was like in my 30s, I'd say my mid 30s. And I was like, oh, and I've come to realize this is something that I've really come to work on here because it keeps showing up again and again and again in my life. So, and as we know, it will keep showing up with
until it's healed.
With a different face and this different set of circumstances, and the circumstances get more intense until we say, I'm ready to work on this. So as I'm unfolding as a medium, as I'm working my full-time job, I'm also working on in my personal life, like, oh my, all this worthiness stuff. So my friend asked me to do readings there. And what's the first thing that I get to? I can't do, there's no way, I'm not good enough. I can't do this here. What, are you crazy? I've been reading out of my house. I'll read out of my house for people. Like my dining room's got more use, It was a safe space. And I did email readings for people because that felt safe to me. And so she finally would not take no for an answer. And so that job that I didn't like that I had for the Christmas money, I was like, forget it. I don't care. I'll just do this job.
Yeah.
I'll take even if I do 3 readings a month, I'm so happy to be here. So, so I started there, and then I started out with like 2 or 3 readings a month. And over the course of 10 years, leaving that space, going to another space, and then building my clientele, all while working full time.
Yeah,
I
wow.
had
Give you kudos for that, because I
no,
I mean, that's part of the reason why I had to quit, because I couldn't do both at the same time. And it was like, teaching was taking all of my energy. I think I had first heard, or learned about you from Spirit School, Danielle Sarink's podcast. And when you described it as I would come home like mentally and physically drained because you're just trying to keep it up all day. It's like I'd come home and make dinner and
Mhm.
go to bed. Like that's all I could do.
And that's where I love how the journey is, where it's similar but not the same, right?
Yes.
So you and I have a very similar journey, but you, I'll say, have that was your soul contract, to do what you did. And my
Yes.
soul contract was, I always say, I'm the girl with the round peg trying to jam it in the square hole forever. I just am so stubborn sometimes. So I I learn the hard way sometimes.
Oh
But
yeah.
so I just I was going, going along, and I was, I was going to different places and building up my working full time as an early child special education teacher, with working with 5 and 6 year olds. So here's,
Hmm.
I finally realized, so I kept this up for 10 years. And then it came that we had, well, it was right before COVID. So it was November. I'll let's go back to November of 2019. That was my, oh my gosh moment. So all along, Spirit had been giving me signs throughout this time as to say, Debbie, this is a lot. And I was just so afraid to leave my day job too. And Spirit kept sending me people that kept saying to me, they'll speak through people, and they kept saying
Hmm.
to me, you could do this, you could do this. I was like, nope, 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 worthiness, nope, 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 worthiness. And fear as well, as well as I do as a teacher, you have a very secure job.
Yeah.
And to take this leap of faith is huge. And, I don't have anybody else that has benefits and insurance. It's me, myself, and I. So I was like,
Right.
this is a huge leap. But I don't want you to do. So what happened was, it started now, these two things started to take a toll in November of 2019 on my physical, emotional, mental health, like they never have before. They did, and I just kept going, no, I got it. No, I got it. No, I got it. So November came, and the intensity of, I was seeing more clients, and and teaching is very intense, and there's a lot of responsibility. So I was going from working all day with a lot of, there's a lot of heavy stuff. There's a
Yeah.
lot of heavy stuff at school with a lot of different things, right?
Yes.
And so I'd have to take my energy there and then get it way up to go sit in my office. And I always say, this was my surviving pattern for 10 years. After my weight loss, I've maintained. It hasn't been easy, but I've maintained. So my alarm would go off at 4:30. I get to the gym for 5:15, 5:30. I do my workout. I come home, get ready, go to work, go teach, leave work, come home, throw something down my throat to eat, change my clothes,
Yeah.
sit in my office from about 5 or 6 until about 9 o'clock at night. And I'd repeat that Groundhog Day over and over again for 10 years until December of 2019, when Spirit was like, listen, you're not listening.
Yeah.
So that's when they took that rug, Alexis, and went whoop, and said, that's it. Now you're going to sink or swim.
Yeah.
So what happened was, my mental and emotional health, like I couldn't get out of, I was feeling very lethargic, very run down. I'm not a person to get sick. I was getting sick more and more. And I couldn't understand why. And so it started in November, then December came, and we got through Christmas. It was tough. And, and I could feel things like falling apart. Like, I'm like, I can't keep up with this. I can't keep up with that. I can't keep focused. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got 2 things going on. So January of 2020 comes, and I'm sick for like 10 days in a row, not getting better. I'm like, what is the deal? Like, I got this fever. It comes, it goes. I'm congested. I can't breathe. I got all this stuff. I'm like, what's the deal with this? Like, why is it just not going away? So I finally, after like 5 or 6 days, I called my doctor and I made an appointment and I went. And I said to her, what is going on with me? And she goes, I know you're very healthy all the time. So she said, she took my blood pressure and she's like, your blood pressure is up. She goes, Debbie, what else is going on with you? And I'm just like, okay. So I broke down in her office. I was like, oh, I was like, this is going on and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And I had other personal issues that were impacting a lot of this as well. So I had
Right.
health issues, I had personal issues. I'm trying to keep all my clients. I got all my school stuff going here. I'm just trying to keep my head above water, and I'm trying to make myself feel like I'm good enough for everybody, right? Because if I fail at one of these areas, here comes the worthiness thing again.
Yes.
Right? So I could do it all. I'm the over pleaser and the, no boundaries, all these things we learn as teachers, right? And she wrote me out of work. She said to me, you're having a stress-induced mental and emotional breakdown. I go, oh, is that what it is when you don't want to eat and you can't sleep and you can't focus and you are anxiety ridden? It was like paralyzed, and right? Anxiety, you can't move. It's just like I can't do anything. And so she wrote me and she said, you're not only out of your teaching job. She goes, you're not doing any readings either. I was like, oh my. And she said, you really need to get your mental and emotional health in check. She goes, she goes, I know you already work out, but I want you to work out twice a day, whether that means you work out and go for a walk, whatever it looks like, but I want you exercising twice a day. She said to me, I want you to journal. I'm like, check, already do it. She goes, I want you to meditate. I'm like, check, already do it. So the other thing she said to me was, you need a therapist. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I wanted to get well. I wanted to get better. I wanted to get well. So I did everything she said. She wrote me back into work. So I was out January, February. I went back about the middle of March, and middle of March, 2020, right? And I kind of was like, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm ready for this to go back. Cause I still I felt really good. And there was this part of me that was like, all this work, is it all just going to fall apart? We're just going to go back to what we did,
Right.
So I did work. And as you know, like yourself, we went back for a short amount of time, and here comes Corona, COVID. I was there for 7 days and we're all home on lockdown, right? Worldwide. And my mom was so cute. And she's like, so who's looking after you? And I said, I call it an SST in my book. Everybody has a spiritual support team. I go, and rock. I said, and mine said, we're not done healing yet. And this is what's going to happen. So we're home, as a teacher, we were doing this whole virtual thing, which was stressful. I was doing my readings virtually. It was so funny. My kitchen was my classroom and my dining room was my
Yeah.
I moved from one room to the other. But during that COVID Corona time, it was so life-changing for me. I said, here's the biggest, craziest oxymoron for me. As we're in a worldwide pandemic, people are sick as can be, and we have people that are passing away left and right. And I said, oh my gosh, and I'm the healthiest I've ever been, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. It was a whole transformation for me. And I was like, wow. I was toying with the idea up until this time of taking a leave of absence from my job. Well, the breakdown just kind of sealed the deal for me. And I was like, you got to do it. So I took the leave of absence, and it was funny when I got word from the superintendent that I was granted my leave. Alexis, it was crazy. You know how Spirit works. It was like Spirit was just waiting. And as soon as that was granted, I got to break out in song, because Spirit talks to me in song. I hear it.
Yeah.
A whole new world, because it was a whole new world. Oh my gosh. I kept feeling like in excess, a new sensation. Like it was crazy. All of these beautiful opportunities were unfolding, and things were just, I was aligning with people and opportunity, and it was a beautiful thing. And I said to myself, I fought this so much, and I've learned the thing we resist the most is the thing we need to embrace the most. And
absolutely.
I say this to people all the time. I was so stubborn and pig-headed, but it was also my learning. And I had to also learn on this whole path. I've learned, I keep learning, because I always say I'm learning every day. We're all a beautiful and continual or continuous work in progress.
Yeah.
So, I said, yes, I'm going to take this leave of absence, and everything just aligned for me. I did have my challenges though with like a new schedule as a teacher. We're used to Michael Jackson. You got me working day and night. Like we're used to
Yeah.
working 6, 8, like sometimes 10 hours. I don't know if people realize that, but crazy. And so I had to learn the freedom.
Yes.
This is a new schedule for you. And so then just going forward, I give my gratitude every day. So it's just been amazing. I've incorporated as an LLC. I have officially left, like you, I have officially left my teaching position as of March. It was official. I was like, wow, just wow. If anyone were to tell me this would be my journey, I would have said, no, I'm going to be a teacher, and this would be my retirement gig. Like that was the way it was in my mind. And this is where we have to be so open to, Spirit has a bigger, better plan than we can ever imagine. I'm so grateful for the freedom I have in my life, I always say, and to help so many people. Oh my gosh, that to me is everything.
And I think too, to be helping, I don't know if you could relate to this, but like helping people in the way that you're supposed to. It's like my whole life I knew I was supposed to help. I wanted to help people somehow, and it like always changed through different helping careers. And then it's like as soon as I did Reiki for the first time, I just was like, this is how I do it.
Your soul felt its purpose, and
Yes.
you're living on purpose or on your purpose. I will always say too, part of my worthiness with my teaching, there were many times throughout my career that I did not feel heard or respected or seen. And that was hard for me. That was really hard for me. And so when I stepped into this work, I was like, wow, like this, my soul feels so good here. Like you said, it just is like this aha, like this, all of the other things are the breadcrumbs to lead you to where you need to be. And I still do question my worth, and it's something I think but it's so much better.
Right.
And I always say, for you to be vulnerable with your story, for me to be vulnerable with my story, to just come out and be like, so, hey, listen, I had a breakdown. This is what happened.
Yeah.
But in the end, listen, I'm doing good stuff, and my heart and soul feels good about that.
Yeah.
So
And it's just crazy how like the big emotional times in life are always kind of almost the triggers to that deeper dive and what you need to heal for yourself. And I was going to say too, it's just crazy to me. I always say crazy, but it's like you said at the beginning, it's crazy good always. Cause it's like almost, it seems impossible, but it's because we've been taught that we're not meant like to have everything aligned and to be perfect. But once you, like you said, you did your leave of absence and you got approved, and it's like immediately everything lines up, and it's like this, you feel like you're getting served everything on like a golden platter. You're like, I never thought this was real, but it's like, this is how life is supposed to be. We just get so out of alignment and used to things not working out and being unhappy.
we're so used to a victim mindset, and we're so used to a struggle. And it's about, I've learned too on this journey to turn that around. And speaking to, when you said these big events that trigger, I look back to and I go, oh my gosh, you know what? When you said that to me, it just made me think of, in my early 30s, I had like that big event that triggered the true opening of my relationship. And then again, when I had a breakdown again, which triggered me to actually leave teaching. I didn't realize that till you just said that.
Crazy how we realize things. Well, and when you were talking too, it made me realize that last March is when COVID hit and when we first left, and I was already not really liking my job, like crying every day, wanting to quit. And that exactly a year later, March, is when I had another big thing happen that was like, this is it, you're done. Like this is how it has to be. So it's crazy how things work out. And I thank you so much for sharing your story. And I love that you bring up self-worth, because I had in my notes that I really wanted to bring up self-worth and imposter syndrome with you, because, and I'm like curious too, because the more podcasts I listen to, the more mediums I talk to or Reiki practitioners, it's like we all almost have that like imposter syndrome where it's like, oh, am I really doing this? Like, am I good enough? Like, and then questioning that self-worth too.
Yes. A lot of people will ask me too, what is imposter syndrome? Like they've never heard of it. And I said, I never heard of it either until I had this feeling. I
Mm-hmm.
knew I had felt something. And then somebody had mentioned that to me. I go, oh, is that what that is? Like, you don't really believe what you do sometimes,
Yeah.
that you struggle with your self-worth about that. Like, do I really do this and help these many? And that's, we go back and forth. Oh, yeah, definitely. For sure.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you have any tips on like things that are just words of wisdom for listeners on things to do for self-worth and just listening to it maybe and feeling it out with your experiences?
Here's the thing I learned. First thing, throw away comparing yourself to anybody else. That's the first thing. Just put your blinders on and worry about you. That's when we first get into trouble with the inferiority complex is when, we compare. And I like to bring it back to your soul. Think of your soul. Your soul is your blueprint for this life, but everybody's soul is unique. And I tell people, think of it as like a fingerprint, right? Everybody's fingerprint is unique. Every snowflake is unique. So every soul is unique. Like I said, you and I have similar, not the same, but such similar stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the biggest thing that I could say has helped me tremendously is, I'm going to break out in Whitney Houston, learning to love yourself, because I thought, Alexis, that I loved myself. And I'm going to say thought, because I didn't even come close to loving myself. And I thought because I ate right and I exercised and I had a good job, that I love myself. No, it's so much deeper than that. And it's about knowing that you are worthy of having good things in your life, whether it be friends, whether it be working your passion, whether, it's about learning to love yourself. And people will say, well, what does that really mean, Debbie? And that means that you feel good about you, because it's so true that whatever is in the inside comes out on the outside. And it took me a long time also to embrace that, because again, I'm just like, no, I got it together. And then I look on the outside and I have chaos, right? I have all these toxic people in my life. And, I really in my head thought I was, doing the right thing. And so the self-love is about putting yourself first. So it's about doing those choices of, and I always say baby steps. So it's about, taking care, make sure you get enough sleep, make sure that you're eating the right things, make sure you're listening to the music you want to listen to, going to the places you want to go to. You're not compromising what you want to do. So for me, that self-worth is also about surrounding yourself with the right people. But sometimes that takes time, because we're also here to learn. I
Yeah.
always say we have called soul contracts.
Yeah.
You have agreements that you come here to learn. But if we have the tools to help us, so now I have more tools, knowing that when I just worry about me and I stop worrying about what everybody else thinks of
Mm-hmm.
me, it's not an easy thing. But the more work you do on yourself, the more confident you feel in yourself, and the more you're able to go forward and inspire people and help people, because you're good with you. So
Yeah.
I would say on the self-worth part, do what makes you happy. And here's the other thing that I would do, and which took me a long time. Other people's criticisms of you do not define you. I let that define me for so long. And I had this complex of, oh, they don't like me. That's okay, because I have to like me.
Right.
And it took me a long time to say, you know what, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that is okay. And once you can embrace that as well, a lot of times as sensitives and empaths, we have this people pleasing and there's such a sensitive side to us that we want everybody to like us. But I had, some people along my path that would say to me, Debbie, you're too sensitive and you're too this and you're too trusting. And I was like, I got to change myself. I got to change myself. And Alexis, the more I tried to change, the more I couldn't. And I finally said to one person in my mid-30s, I was like, listen, this is who I am. If you don't like me, there's nothing I can do. I cannot change it. I have tried. It's not happening. So if it's not working for you, we're gonna, have to leave, or we can't be,
Right. Walk the other way, because I'm not going to change who I am for you.
Yeah. So it's about embracing all of the things that you enjoy, that make you, that build your confidence. Because the other thing I experience a lot with my clients in readings is that they're always looking for somebody else. Like they're always looking for this external thing to make them worthy. And I like to say to them, listen, I know I walked that path too, and it's not about that. It's inside that makes you worthy. And
Right.
it's not an easy path, but embrace what feels good to you. And not, if you can, people are going to say what they're going to say, just say thank you, I appreciate what but do not let that define you. Do not let their negative thinking, their criticisms, their thoughts define you, because we tend to live in that low, or we tend to like resonate, a lot of us, in that very low vibration space. And if we can do the other thing for self-worth, I always say, if you can do any sort of gratitude practice, whether you pay it forward in the coffee line, or if you give somebody a compliment, doing high vibe reading, even watching high vibe videos of things that your interests, your passions. When I say high vibe, if they're like, what's high vibe? Whatever interests you, watch that. Any of those things, walking in nature, exercising, anything that keeps your energy high. I like to remind people, listen, you're a spiritual being before you're anything else. Before you're the human being, you're the spiritual being. And we always talk about taking care of our physical bodies, but what about your spiritual hygiene? I'm always like, you gotta take care of that. I like to say affirmations too. I am affirmations with I am enough. I am worthy. I am worthy of a loving relationship. I am worthy of helping people. I love all of that. Louise Hay, that her positive thinking and the heal you, that has helped me a lot too. But
Yes.
that's what I would say is the number one thing for self-worth. You have to love yourself. And then I started to say, a lot of my clients will say, well, when is this person? I'll say, listen, that person's coming in once you start working on your power, when you start speaking up for yourself, when you embrace who you are, because that person is not coming to make you better or fix anything. That person is going to come to enhance you and who you are and your way of life. If it doesn't happen, anything out before that is a lesson for you, and it's a learning. That's what it's about. They're going to meet you at your vibrational level.
Yep.
And that's why it's a learning at that point, because so many people will also say, Deb, they're the love of my life. I go, I get it. I've had a few myself, but it was at that point in my life, this is where we were. And I always talk about too, we've had other lives before this one. So, you might have some energetic balance and, karmic debt you're working out here too. And so.
Absolutely. I think those are great tips. And I love that you bring up like the gratitude journaling too. And just, I think that's been my biggest thing on mindset too. It helps with self-worth, but also your mindset, because like starting every morning with a gratitude journal, or even if you don't have time to journal, like just as soon as I wake up, sometimes it's my goal to say, thank you for another day of life. And then like I ramble off my other list if it's going to be a busy day where, I know I'm not going to have the time to write it down, but I just feel like that almost immediately shifts you into a higher vibration too, because you're not immediately starting your day focusing on everything that you're grateful for and that's going right.
I'm a huge, huge gratitude person. And when you say that too, I always say, so your highest vibrations are love, gratitude, laughter. Those are the highest vibrations that you can be. Anything other than that are just different degrees of, well, we're all love, but it's like lack of love or not feeling that love, anything else. But yeah, that gratitude, and it has become such second nature for me. Like you said too, it triggered me to think. I get up every morning and I say, thank you for my health and thank you for my family's health. Something I never did before, something I took for granted, and I don't anymore. Even getting in my car now, thank you. I have a terrible car and it takes me from here to there. I take a shower and I go, thank you for the warm water that comes. Thank you for the water first that comes out of the shower. And then and when you said mindset, for me, 100%, you're so spot on, because when you can change your mindset, you change your energy and your vibration. And then all of the people and circumstances and opportunities show up in your life differently. So true.
I think too, almost, and I didn't think about it until just now as we're talking. So it's crazy how things come through too. But like, I feel like starting out with gratitude in the morning too, it just almost helps you to be more present throughout your entire day, because a lot of everything else, like, I mean, it's hard to be grateful for what you have in a moment, in like this moment, when you're either feeling depressed and you're worrying about the past, or you're anxious because you're worrying about the future. You know, you can't think about what you're grateful for at those times because you're too not present. Like, what word am I looking for? But
Yeah, no, that's so true. And it's such a great point. You're absolutely right. It's true. And what do we always say? Like, worrying is such a wasted emotion.
mhm,
All the worrying in the world is not going to change what the outcome of something is going to be. So
absolutely.
I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but that's where the other things come in, like, like we were talking about, the like a meditation or journaling or walking in nature, because it really does, it helps you to handle those, I'll say, those turbulent times or those challenging times that do come our way. We can't, like you just said, mindset. You
Mhm.
have a different shift or perspective of how you're going to handle it. It's not this um that that we would normally, anxiety ridden place that we would come from.
Right. It's coming from a place of like gratitude and love. So
Yes, because you've trained your vibration to understand it and respond differently to it, which I try to explain to people. This doesn't come overnight. You have to do it with consistency.
yes, that's the biggest thing. Like, consistency is key. You have to do it over and over again. And I think another thing I think people, especially younger women, are maybe struggling with now that this stuff is more mainstream, is seeing it on Instagram or TikTok. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, they're so developed, they're so advanced, I'm never going to get there. And then they just see that end point. So they're like, that's where I want to be, instead of putting in the time and energy and like development, and consistency to get there. And again, with the self-worth thing too, it's all, I think, the biggest thing to remember. And I'm kind of saying this because my goal for this podcast is to help people heal through listening to it. And the biggest thing is remembering that it doesn't happen overnight, and that sometimes the moment you think you have figured something out or healed it, the next day you get smacked in the face with that self-worth again.
I'm going to validate you right there. It was so funny. We all have those triggers, right? We like to call them. We're on our Zen path, on meditating every day, and la, 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 la. And it was so funny. I had something happen. It was like somebody sent me something and it was an immediate trigger for me. And I was like, okay, toolbox. I'm like, take a deep breath. I'm like, and I had to do my deep breathing, and I looked at it from that person's perspective. That is not a reflection of me. And I could, because I had those tools, just like you said, have those tools, and I could look at it differently. But those tools, to validate what you just said too, I've developed them over time, a long time. And for what you said too, we're such a society of instant gratification. And I hear a song again, someone saying, I want it all and I want it now. And that's kind of the way it is lately. Nobody wants to, anything, what's that phrase, anything worth waiting for or working for, but anything, anything really good is worth working for and waiting.
Yes.
So it's about putting in the time. I will always use the metaphor of the weight loss. I'll always go back to, like, well, Debbie, did you gain all that weight in 2 months? No. So what makes you think that you're going to put in some practices for 2 months and your whole life is going to change?
Yep.
Right.
Right. Absolutely. For sure. Well, Debbie, I want to thank you so, so much for coming on, for sharing your story, for sharing some vulnerable things, and talking with us more about self-worth and that imposter syndrome. I did have a couple questions or things that I would like you to add for the end. Maybe you can plug yourself, like what kind of readings you offer, and then where any of my listeners can find your information.
Oh, thank you. First, I wanted to say to Alexis, thank you from the bottom of my heart for having me. I am very honored and so grateful. Thank you. And I love the topics that you want to speak about. So, and I love that we share a similar story. So thank you. Everyone's time is, I'm very cognizant. Everyone, you can choose to spend your time anywhere. And so thank you so much. I appreciate it. You can find me. I am at DebbieSquizzero.com, DebbieSquizzero.com. If that is too much to remember, I am also at singingmedium.com. Spirit talks to me a lot through song. So I'm at singingmedium.com. I am also on Facebook under Psychic Debbie Squizzero Psychic Medium. Instagram, Debbie Squizzero Medium. I also have a YouTube channel in which I answer questions. Over the years. My clients ask me the same, like I get a lot of the same questions. So I started the channel so I could start addressing the questions for people. So I started that back in February, and that's under Debbie Squizzero Evidential Psychic Medium. So, for readings, I offer everything via Zoom. I do private sittings. I also do a couples reading, which does not have to be a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. I've had 2 cousins. I've had 2 siblings. I've had 2 friends. It's just 2 people. I offer a family reading for 3 to 5 people in the same family that all wish to hear from the same deceased members in spirit. And I also do a group reading for 10 people or 8 to 10 people over Zoom as well. So I do all of those over Zoom. I can do all those. I do in person and I do Zoom. So, but those are the readings that I offer.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Debbie. And thanks for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Alexis.
Thank you all for joining us today. It was such a pleasure having Debbie on the show. And I know I definitely learned a lot from her, and I hope you guys did as well. As always, my DMs and emails are always open for questions, and I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week. See you next week. Bye.